Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. A stunning display of dishonesty from the national press and radical left politicians. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Last week, about 680 undocumented aliens were arrested by ICE officials countrywide. Many of them have already been deported. The coordinated raids targeted aliens who had committed crimes in the USA, mostly felonies. 75% of those taken into custody had convictions, including homicide and rape. One man arrested in Chicago and is an Iraqi citizen with a conviction of sexual abuse of a victim unable to consent. Many of the arrested non-felons were associating with the criminals. But those facts have largely gone unreported by the American press and by the radical left, which is actively misleading you.
What took place yesterday with raids in personal homes is part of the cog of the Trump deportation machine.
How inhumane this is to be breaking down people's doors and separating parents from their children.
This is Donald Trump really executing his campaign plan. He's trying to be a tough guy, so he's going to go after, the maids, the moms, the people that are working in the shops, instead of going after the hardcore criminals.
Maids, moms, and shopkeepers, according to that dishonest politician. Now, the false news reporting actually reached the level of hysteria. Newspaper headlines screaming things like, "The Trump deportation regime has begun." Immigrant community on high alert, fearing Trump's deportation force. On Devon Avenue in Chicago, news of immigration raids intensifies fears. We could find no headline in major newspapers, none, that bannered the fact the raids were targeted at illegal aliens who had committed serious crimes. Committed them. That's not press bias. That's blatant dishonesty. Here's another example. In the year 2013, the Obama administration removed from this country more than 434,000 illegal aliens, the highest number in history, which goes back to 1892. Did you see any anti-Obama demonstrations? Did you see any screaming headlines in the national media? No, you did not. Even after President Obama said this.
What we should be doing is setting up a smart, legal immigration system. It doesn't separate families, but does focus on making sure that people who are dangerous, people who are, gangbangers or, or criminals, that we're deporting them as quickly as possible.
And that's exactly what President Trump is doing, exactly. But the illegal immigration issue has been set up by the media to demonize Mr. Trump as a racist and a brutalizer of the poor. That's what's really going on here, a setup. It's flat out disgraceful. If the federal government cannot remove aliens who commit serious crimes in this country, then we don't have an effective federal government. Yet the far left and the press, knowing full well that the ICE raids last week were directed at dangerous people, chose not to report that, instead smearing President Trump. We have now reached a low point in American journalism. As for the far left, they are people who do not want any immigration enforcement. They want open borders. They want alien criminals protected. They want anarchy. Why? Because they don't like America as it stands now. So it is very important for all honest citizens to know you are not getting accurate information and that there is a radical element in this country that wants to destroy it. If this continues, there will be a breaking point. And that's the memo. Now for the top story reaction, joining us from Wheaton, Illinois, nationally syndicated columnist Ruben Navarrete. So Ruben, I am very, very concerned about this blatant dishonesty, the reportage of the ICE raids last week. Are you as concerned as I am?
Bill, good to be with you again. I am concerned. My vantage point is of one who wrote about the 3 million deportations carried out by the Barack Obama administration. And I couldn't get a lot of these liberals in the media to join me on the front line. I couldn't get them worked up and excited about it. And now all of a sudden it's been surreal to watch in the last 30 days or so. They just woke up one morning and realized that people were being deported out of the United States In fact, for the last 8 years, 1,000 people a day have been deported out of the United States. What's new is the liberal outrage.
But these are criminals in the Trump administration, and most of them were targeted criminals, to be fair, in the Obama administration as well. They sent back border trespassers, but the ICE raids were not directed at what that politician said, the chambermaids, and they weren't directed at tearing families apart. They were directed at convicted criminals in this country illegally.
No, I disagree with you, Bill. Don't be too generous to Barack Obama. He said as a talking point that, in fact, he was only getting rid of gangbangers. You heard it there. And criminals. But when they did audits of the people that he removed out of the country, they found that in many cases, it was only about 10 to 17, 18% of those folks who had criminal records. What you do, the reason this gets confusing for a lot of folks, if you have a housekeeper who you trust in your home with your family, and they get deported and they come back, the minute they come back, they've committed a felony.
Okay, but
so
it
we
should
call
be
them
a felony.
criminal.
It should be a felony.
Well, we call him a criminal. And what Barack Obama did, and I don't want you or Donald Trump to fall into this trap, is for 8 years, he played on the idea that when he said gangbanger or criminal, an image would pop into our head.
Fine. Do you believe that the Trump administration last week was targeting violent felons? Do you believe that?
I don't believe that we know that the Trump administration pulled the trigger on these raids at all. I know we have the statement now from Secretary of Homeland Security,
yes.
John Kelly, who said that this was a targeted.
75%, Ruben. 75%.
He said it was a targeted. He said it was a targeted plan that was already in motion and planned before Trump took office.
Okay, but
so this idea,
if
the
Trump
liberals are
didn't
quick to point
want
the
it,
finger.
Trump could have stopped it, and he didn't, because he's targeting criminal aliens. Yet the liberal media won't tell you that, Ruben. They will, they're not going to tell you that.
I agree with you. And they also didn't say that. They didn't tell us that when Barack Obama was doing it. I think conservatives have to be careful here not to play Obama's game, which is to deport, in fact, the maids and the housekeepers. Just say they're maids and housekeepers. Don't doctor them up with words like gangbanger.
Let that policy be written, but the dishonesty of the reportage on the ICE raids last week under the Trump administration was off the chart. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it.
I agree.
I don't see it.
No, it was surreal. It was surreal. These are the same people who at one point told me not to write about deporting people anymore. The fact that Barack Obama had deported people. I made liberal editors nervous.
In your view, they wanted to cover it up for the Obama administration, but they're using it as a club against Trump. Same people.
Yeah, they have discovered their humanity and outrage just in the last 30 days, because in the old days with Obama, this was somebody who they supported, voted for, and wanted to succeed. And they didn't want to make him out to be the bad guy.
All right, I do disagree with you a little bit. The Obama administration did target, though, the worst among them, and that people who are
That's
deported,
what he wants you to believe, Bill.
People who are deported and then come back again, I believe, deserve to be targeted. Ruben, always a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you. Next on The Rundown, we'll talk with a former ICE agent about last week's raids and what we can expect in the future.